Hello, everyone. How's it going? My name is Diana Loderhose. I'm the International Features Editor here at Deadline. I'm so delighted to be here today to talk about Aardman Animation's latest feature film, Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Fowl, which releases globally on Netflix, excluding the UK, this winter. It's debuting in the UK on BBC before later coming to Netflix in the UK later in 2025. Wallace and Gromit have been national treasures in this country since 1989, and it's been nearly 20 years since the intrepid inventor Wallace and his devoted dog enchanted the world in their first feature film with 2005's Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit. How many of you remember that? Yeah, it's a really good one. So you'll be delighted with the newest edition. We've got Aardman's 4-time Academy Award-winning director Nick Park and Emmy Award-nominated Merlin Crossingham to return with the latest installment to the Wallace and Gromit franchise, where Gromit's concerned that Wallace is becoming too dependent on his inventions become justified when Wallace invents a smart gnome that seems to develop a mind of his own. When it emerges that a vengeful figure from the past might be masterminding things, it falls to Gromit to battle sinister forces and save his master, or Wallace may never be able to invent again. As you can imagine, it's got that signature Aardman animation heart and whip-smart humor that's sure to warm audiences. I'm delighted to welcome to the stage today directors Nick Park, Merlin Crossingham, and executive producer Carla Shelley. And they've brought some friends with them.
They don't say much.
Do you want to just, for anyone who's not familiar, I think most people are, do you want to just maybe point out to us who you brought with us today?
Oh, yeah. We have our friends Gromit, Wallace, and you'll be familiar with Feathers McGraw from The Wrong Trousers and this film, and a new character, Norbot the Gnome, the smart gnome. And these are the actual puppets from the movie.
They're just amazing. So amazing. So look, before we get started, let's take a quick look at a clip from the movie. More very in-depth behind the scenes, because you guys just wrapped post yesterday on this, right? So look, it's an amazing film, and I know that so much goes into these projects and they take quite a long time. I'd love to know, maybe how long did this movie start? Like, at what point did you start developing this and deciding to bring Wallace and Gromit back to big screens?
Well, it started really, it was like as often ideas begin as a small doodle in a sketchbook. Originally, this is back into the days of Curse of the Were-Rabbit, 2005-ish. I was just playing around with the idea of, gnomes are always a part of the Wallace and Gromit world, and what if Wallace invented a smart gnome? And obviously, and what if then things went wrong, which is inevitable. But the idea of Feathers McGraw coming back in was a slightly later breaking idea, because just machines going wrong seemed a bit normal for Wallace and Gromit. We needed something with a bit more bite and a kind of someone with an actual clear, sinister motive. And Feathers McGraw was obviously the perfect candidate, having sat in jail for 30 years, languishing, thinking of nothing but revenge. It seemed like the perfect motivation for a villain. So.
Yeah.
And that's when Merlin came on board and we started developing it further, and with the writer Mark Burton.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've been making it since about 2020. So in pre-production, then 15 months of filming.
Yeah.
And just finished post. So we haven't actually seen it with an audience yet, but we're looking forward to that.
So tell us a little bit more about, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on the storyline and kind of how these ideas came and why you decided to bring these characters back with the new characters. What was kind of the inspiration? Maybe you can go in a little deeper on that.
Yeah, I mean, our films are often, we talk about the films we love all the time, and we talked about, Cape Fear and an older film from the '60s, based on the Midwich Cookies, Village of the Damned, yeah, and various movies like this, and I mean, it developed for quite a while with just the idea of, just the fun you could have with Wallace inventing a smart gnome, and obviously Wallace is well-meaning and he's not a bad guy, but it's all about, I guess it's a kind of a metaphor for how we're in love with tech, and we have a love affair with tech, and sometimes it gets in the way of relationships, and in fact, Gromit would be a lot happier without the tech, really, without the inventions and the gadgets.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a kind of a humorous metaphor and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it took off when Feathers came on board and just stepped up a few gears.
Yeah, he certainly does.
Because then there was, so we just had great fun developing, from what we'd done in The Wrong Trousers years ago, and big shout out to Steve Box for animating that character. We're now in a much bigger canvas for Feathers McGraw, but we've tried to keep him pretty much. That's been the biggest challenge in a way, of keeping him very disciplined and online, and being a very strong and silent villain, as in The Wrong Trousers.
Carla, is there something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say, I remember Nick shared with the rest of us in the studio the idea for the gnome idea, really, Wallace inventing a smart gnome, and we all got quite excited about that. But a little bit later on into the process, when he revealed that Feathers was going to be behind this and was coming back, I remember just that the whole room got chills. It just felt like a really magical moment. We've been waiting so long to see him back on the screen, so a lot of excitement around the studio, so it's lovely to have him back.
Yeah. What can obviously we can't tell any spoilers, but what can, people who are familiar, you've done many Wallace and Gromit films and we've seen Feathers before, what can audiences expect from Feathers in this movie?
A masterclass in villainy, and he's a master of disguise as well. You can see he's in his chicken disguise at the moment. Yeah. But I think the thing is like Nick alluded to, there's something about villains when they don't run and they have an internal stillness, and with animation that's really difficult because animators like moving things. That's what they do, and so we worked really hard with our animators to just calm him down and make him mean and in a kind of very gentle but quite sinister way. So yeah, I think that's the thing with Feathers. You've got to love your villain, really, haven't you? Yeah, so
it's kind of less is more, isn't it? All
Absolutely.
The time with Feathers, which goes against the instincts as animators, because you think animators want to move things, whereas we're always saying, no, just move him. It's just about it's about creating a lot with a little, is the secret.
Tell us what it was like then, kind of returning with Wallace and Gromit. These are characters that have been around and in the public eye and so loved for so long. How do you, kind of what were your discussions when you were making this of how you were going to evolve them as characters in this story, and also what was it like kind of making these guys again, returning, playing with them again? Maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
I mean, it's always with Wallace and Gromit. It's always about the relationship between Wallace and Gromit, and it's usually like in Curse of the Were-Rabbit, it's very much the learning curve was all Gromit's really. How do I not try to change the person I'm living with, and accept him for who he is. And that we kind of keep exploring that theme in this one, because that's always the challenge for Gromit, is how do you live with a guy like Wallace? But there's a kind of we kind of play on that more. There's a bit of give and take more in this, isn't there?
Yeah, and there is a huge fan base, especially in the UK, for Wallace and Gromit. But we're well aware that there's lots of people out there who don't necessarily know Wallace and Gromit. So there needed to be a familiarity for those who love the previous films, but also it very much needed to be accessible for people coming to Wallace and Gromit for the first time. And like Nick says, we've sort of, I mean, they haven't got a massive wedge between them. I mean, he's only a little gnome, but he's emotionally quite a big divide between them. And we've pushed Wallace and Gromit into sort of places they've not been before for their relationship, which has had its challenges. And we worked with Mark Burton, our writer, and to thread in the quite contemporary themes that are running through the film, like Nick was saying about technology, but also it's not contemporary technology. It's from a time back along. So questions about would they actually have computers in their house if they're from sort of a time gone by before computers even existed, and it's sort of all about rivets and steel and sort of more of a steampunk kind of vibe. But yes, it's been very nice to sort of expand them out into a feature-length film as well. To go, Nick's done 4.5 hours in the feature film previously, and you can have a proper rip-roaring adventure in a feature, and that's been really exciting.
Yeah.
And a proper emotional story.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're gonna make everybody cry, and we're gonna surprise everybody, and make you laugh as well. But I think it is really emotional, sort of what's at the heart of it. But not too schmaltzy. We would never get like that with Wallace and Gromit.
Carla, maybe you can talk a little bit about. I mean, there's a big. There's a lot of British talent in this film, and it is it's a quintessentially British IP to me. And maybe what do you think that these characters of the British talent that you brought on board for this film, what did they offer to the storyline?
I think, well, obviously it was lovely to have some of our familiar characters back. Unfortunately, we couldn't bring Peter Sallis back as Wallace this time. We lost him in 2017. But we've had Ben Whitehead step in, who's been working with Peter for a long time, actually, really as his understudy. So that felt like quite a seamless transition. He's done an absolutely amazing job and brought his own sort of tone to the part as well. And then it was lovely to get Peter Kay back on board as Chief Inspector Mackintosh. He's slightly grey around the edges this time than in the previous film. I think he's the only one that's aged physically, actually. The others are timeless. And he was just starting his tour, I think, when we approached him, so we weren't sure he'd be able to do it, but he was really keen and has done an amazing job. So then we had Lauren Patel join as PC Mukherjee, one of our new characters. And I think, we worked with our casting director, Lucy Rands, to sort of help us find somebody to fit that part. And she's just been amazing. They're such an amazing comedy duo, I think. And I think, the cast generally, it's quite a small cast, but just very reflective of a northern town today and the characters you might find there. So,
Reese.
And then Reese Shearsmith, who just brings this slightly bizarre northern surreality, I think, to the part of Norbert. So he's been fantastic to work with as well.
Yeah, we didn't want a cute gnome. We wanted like a gruff northern gnome. So Reese was great for that.
Brilliant.
Carla, you rightly mentioned the characters are timeless, and that's like one of the first things that struck me when I watched this movie is just that, God, these are such timeless characters. Obviously, with stop motion, animation, with all, how the industry has evolved, the technology's obviously evolved a lot. But you guys have done such a good job of making it. I know you must be using new tech, but it seems very seamless, and that's a credit to how well, you've always done it, but I'd love to know just a little bit of the techie side of it and kind of what's evolved and what's changed, if anything.
Well, the heart and soul of it hasn't changed at all. The technique is exactly the same as it always was. Move it, take a frame, move it, take a frame. And with this film, we've really tried to shoot as much as possible in front of the camera. And it was only then, if we couldn't do that, that we looked at alternatives that were appropriate to telling the story. So the sort of the hands-on craft, stop motion of it is still the heart and soul. Camera technology's changed. We can view stuff almost immediately. Things like that we never would have dreamt of asking for in the past. Water, particle effects, steam, smoke, all of those kind of things in stop motion are just nigh on impossible to do with any sort of elegance. So that's where sort of the technological side of visual effects has really come onto a point where we can embed it into stop motion in a way that feels appropriate to the Wallace and Gromit world, which is kind of chunky and clunky, and visual effects have struggled with that in the past. But our team has been fantastic in making it feel right. It's and that's been the most important thing, really, that when we have used any technological advances in image making, that it's felt right to the film. And the other things are things you won't see, like silicone. I mean, there's really geeky things like Wallace's trousers used to be made of clay originally, modelling clay, then foam latex. And we used to like the idea of using silicone. You could get the silicone to look good, but it wouldn't move, or you could get it to move, but it wouldn't look good. But just in the last couple of years, that's changed. And so the material technologies aside, and the craft involved in that, so you can still see the fingerprints in it, and then he just moves just like an action figure, and so those kind of things are fascinating as well. So it's not necessarily the obvious technologies that you might think, but there's quite a lot of crafted technologies, and the armatures inside, the miniature engineering, all of those things that the kind of the invisible technologies which come to make a film hopefully still have that handcrafted and have the human touch. That's really important to us.
Does it has anything kind of helped in terms of speeding up the process for you, or is it just they still take the same amount of time, but you have better tools to be working with?
The silicone is one of the things, because I can move Wallace and I don't have to resculpt his arm. And that might seem like a really simple thing, but it's the difference between an animator finishing half a second of animation a day or 1.5 seconds of animation a day. So, then over 15 months, that's a significant for the production manager.
Yeah. And even in using just the traditional technique, we've developed different things over the years just to make it a little bit quicker. One of those is like what you're saying, but also like the mouth replacements. Because one of the things that takes the longest is to make Wallace or whichever character talk. And so now rather than the animator sculpting through every single different mouth position repeatedly, we can take off the head. No. Sorry, I can't quite. But the mouth area itself is, we pre-make those in molds. And it's a way of, because we've got so many animators all animating Wallace, it keeps the style the same as well. But Wallace has how many mouth shapes about?
I think 14 as a basic set. Because they're modelling clay, you can still move them around and get the unique expressions.
We have a whole mouth department within the model making team. There's quite a lot of them.
Yes, but it's still clay, so that the animator still can take some initiative with it, and it's not just a set pattern.
Yeah. It really is just remarkable what you guys do. Thank you so much. Everyone, you're going to love this film, so go see it when it's out.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.